Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're going to do a Women of Horror Spotlight. Today, I have with us, she is one of the leading actresses in a new horror movies that's streaming on Tubi, Amazon, wherever you can find your local indie horror movies. And it's called Summoners. I have with us one of the leading actresses, Christine Nyland. Christine, welcome to the Horror Room.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. Tell us a little bit about your role in Summoners.
So Summoners, so I actually also co-wrote it.
And co-writer, guys.
Yeah, so I co-wrote the film. We started this one writing it late 2020 into 2021, and then we shot it in summer of 2021. I played Jess, who is a former witch who returns to her hometown and bumps into an old friend who she used to practice magic with. And the plot sort of takes off from there as these women sort of rekindle their friendship and rekindle their craft.
Now, by being the co-writer and a actress in it, when you were writing this character, did you write this character for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, when we were co-writing it, we sort of knew that I would be acting in it and Terrence would be directing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now is Jess a little bit of you?
I mean, so this is the funny thing. I think this is like the big secret of the arts, right? It's always a little bit of you, right? So Jess is a little bit of me, but so is every character in the movie, right? And that's true of everything you write. You know what I mean? Like, because it's really all you have to work with. And so it's just kind of like, and I feel like this is true as an actor too. You're just kind of like turning up and down the dials on different parts of yourself to figure out, like, what does this character say now? Well, they have more of a chip on their shoulder than me. So what does the me with a chip on my shoulder say? You know, it's that sort of thing.
Just, I would assume it's a way of you expressing yourself a little bit by writing, whether it be you're author, a screenwriter, or actor, actress, filmmaker. I feel like you're putting a little bit of yourself out into the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're doing it right, I think that, like, if at the very least for me, if it's not that, it's not worth it. Like, if it doesn't, it should cost you a little something.
Now, and it's interesting. I 100% agree. And now this is about witchcraft. Now, have you always been fascinated with witchcraft? Are you into witchcraft, or it's just something you're like, this would be a cool idea?
I mean, I think it's a little of all of the above. I mean, I definitely, and Terrence also grew up watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was, I think, sort of like the gateway drug for an entire generation. Yeah. And when we were writing the movie, we talked a lot about the craft and practical magic and the things that we loved about those films, and also some of the things we didn't love about those films, and what does a witch movie look like for adult women? What does a witch movie look like in 2022? And yeah, I mean, I feel like I think it's a tweet. I always hate it when I have to quote tweets, but I feel like there was a tweet years back that was like, millennials like tarot cards because none of us can afford therapy. And that's kind of how I feel about magic. Right?
Yes.
Right? Like, it's like a framework that can help you, like, understand and process things, and that's so necessary that I think that, like, regardless of how much stock individuals do or don't put into the I'm sorry, there's cat gymnastics happening right in front of me. How much stock you as an individual do or don't put into the magic elements, I think, like, if it's a way of sort of metabolizing your experience, if it's a way of situating yourself as having agency and understanding in a situation, like, that's very real.
I agree. And witchcraft is one of those things. So my mom was a witch. She
love a witch mom. I love it. Yes. Mine too. And, psychic than witch. My mom's more like gonna call me the second something bad happens.
Oh no, my mom was like the Black Bull witch.
I love it.
And but like witchcraft has been something that's always was a thing that empowered women over time. it was something that like men definitely like were scared of, that women had this certain amount of power or these magical powers, and you know it led to a lot of women death as well.
Yeah, yeah. Sylvia Federici actually has a really fantastic book on the witch hunts of like the Middle Ages in Europe, and I'm going to completely sort of butcher the thesis of it right now because it's too big for like a soundbite. But she basically talks about how if you look at one of her points is that if you look at all of the crimes that women were being accused of, they're all things like potions, which were actually like birth control or abortificants, or infant sacrifices, which is like when infanticide would happen because a family already had 8 kids and couldn't take care of another one. And they were like sodomy, right? All of these things that tied back to population control. And this happened in a period right after the plagues had swept through and had like decimated the laborer population. And so the sort of church and the state and like the powers that be were really invested in making sure the next generation was more people, because the more laborers there were, the less power the laborers had, right? Because when there aren't enough people to work, people need workers. And so you can be choosing more demanding. And so it's a really fascinating read about like the history of witchcraft and like femicide and this like intersection of like all these things we're still seeing today with women and our rights to our own bodies.
That's correct. And poisoning your husband too. I mean, don't forget about that part. I mean, that was important.
Yeah, the book is called Caliban and the Witch, if I didn't mention the title. Sylvia Federici.
Ooh, okay.
Fantastic.
Definitely.
And apologies to her, anyone who's read it, if I just like over truncate it.
Yes. But like, so like I'm a huge horror fan. And like I said, my mom is the one who got me into horror at 5 years old. And like I like you were talking about The Craft and you're talking about Buffy the Vampire. I really didn't get into those. The one thing that really got me into witchcraft was American Horror Story: The Coven. Mm-hmm. That season. And like I really didn't watch any of the other American Horror Stories, but I watched that one because my mom was watching it. So like and it was just so fascinating because if you look even in witchcraft, there's different types of witches, there's different types of covens, there's types of groups. I mean, there's a whole bunch of subgenres. Witchcraft is just not one thing. There's a whole bunch of subgenres in witchcraft. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think there's also something like deeply personal about it too, right? Like what I think, like if we're talking about whether we're talking about like spell casting or like interpreting a tarot card, like anything, like it's totally fine and valid to like read things in books, but for me, anything that I have to come to on my own is always going to carry more weight, right?
Correct.
That's true even outside of witchcraft, right? Like there's such a difference between something you learn and something you're told.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Now, what got you into acting and horror writing?
Oh, what got me into acting? I don't know, being like a child with an overactive imagination. That's a forever thing. That's been since I was very, very small, and I think something my parents always hoped I would outgrow, and here I am.
Now, what was your first role?
I mean, how do we define first role? I was doing plays when I was 6, 8, just little like elementary school things. But I always probably my first actual role was watching the Olsen twins film, It Takes Two, in my bedroom over and over again and acting out the Mary Kate part. That was every Friday and Saturday night, that movie just on a loop until my mother would come in at 4 a.m. and be like, you have to go to bed now.
Now, for anyone who's probably a Gen Zer, the Olsen twins were the the Olsen twins. So I'm a millennial, and I'm like an old millennial. But the Olsen twins were fucking huge.
Oh, they were massive. They were just older enough than me for me to aspire, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were billionaires
Yeah.
at like 13 years old,
Yeah.
which is like,
They have
crazy.
like an empire, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like they've all but like disappeared. You know, they're still
Yeah,
around.
they don't do nothing. They don't do nothing.
Really,
You don't see
like
them.
a clothing line and stuff. I think they are businesswomen at this point. But I think
Do you
they,
think so?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm actually very confident.
I haven't heard anything about the Olsons except for I think it's their older sister. The older
I think
sister
that's
is.
because that's how the Olsons want it. I think they are very powerful.
If I had that money, you wouldn't see me either.
Yeah, right? That's not true. I'm an actor. You would see me. But I think they're over that. Which I can't blame
Now-
them. They were so in the public eye for so long.
For so long. I mean, and like one good thing about it, I mean, I could be completely wrong, but like for child actresses, they didn't go off the rails like most child actors and actresses do. You know, usually they just get a drug problem or something.
I don't know. I don't know the specifics of them, but certainly that's really common. And it's funny, like talking about me as like a young actor, I was very much like, I wish my parents would take me on auditions. And now as like an adult, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that my childhood wasn't that, you know? Yeah.
Now, okay, so now as a writer for a movie, now Terrence Gray, he's the director. Are you nervous, like when you write a script, that the director going to hopefully interpret what you have written down, the story, into the actual film?
I have never written a script and then completely handed it off. Terrence and I worked like very closely through pre-production and obviously production. So we were largely like on the same page about things. So it wasn't I don't think I would be nervous. I'm just not sure I would ever do it. I'm not sure that I would write a movie and then just give it to somebody else to direct and be completely uninvolved in production from there on out. Yeah. Which maybe indicates that I would be nervous if I made that choice. I just probably won't ever make that choice.
You probably make that choice, yeah. Now, any aspirations to get behind a camera and be a director or direct a movie?
I have a co-directing credit on one of Terrence and I's films, and I'm currently sort of working on some projects. I think my actual big aspiration is to separate out the projects I act in from the projects I work on as a filmmaker. Like I would like to write roles for other people and say other people's words. They kind of, we're really in an era of like make your own work for actors. And I think there is so much to be learned and gained through doing that. But I will say it's a creative art form, but it's also an interpretive art form. And there is something so fun about getting like the puzzle box of someone else's script and this character that exists in someone else's mind and having to really like parse through like all of the choices. That it's just not as satisfying when you were there when all those choices were made.
I can imagine. Well, also I can imagine it's probably fucking stressful too. I mean, if you're an actor, you're the actress, you're the co-writer, and you also are helping Terrence with the directing part. You're wearing a lot of hats.
I feel like that's the other thing is I think like being on set, and again, I think I have gotten so much out of. If there are any young filmmakers or young actors out there watching, like don't be discouraged for making your own work. Like again, so much to get so much done. I'll probably do it again at some point, but I do think it spreads you really thin. And it's like nice to be on set and have the only thing you're responsible for be doing your role. Whatever that role is, whether that's your role as an actor, your role as a director, your role as a producer, whatever it is, because you kind of wind up having to, you have to keep a lot of plates spinning. You have to keep, and film sets are already always just all over the place, right? There's already, any job you're doing on a film set, you're already like doing too many things.
Yes. But I can also imagine on the other side going as, being a co-director and being a writer and going on to someone else's set and being an actress and reading their story and seeing their vision. I can imagine it's hard to be like, well, this is what, oh, I would do this or I would do that.
I mean, I think it's just you approach it from a different place, right? And I think there's always going to be collaborations that like gel more than others, but I think for me at this point, when I start working with people, whatever that capacity is, there's some amount of not just like, do I like this script, but also am I on this? Are we trying to make the same movie? Like, is the interpretation of the character I'm bringing to the table the one that fits into your vision of this film, right? And to some extent, like, if you're getting cast in something based on the choices you made in an audition, you're already probably in the same ballpark, right? But there's always going to be projects where things are a better fit, or you have a love interest that you can't stand and you have to make that work. It's a job as well as like a passion, right? So but I also think when you walk in and your job is to be an actor, I think you haven't necessarily imagined how the whole thing needs to be shot in your head, and you can kind of hands off the wheel because it's not your steering wheel.
That's true. Now, did you think back when you were watching the Olsen Twins?
You know so much about me so quickly.
Did you think that you would be dabbling into the horror genre?
Yeah, because I was already watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer at that age. I was too young when I was like 6 when I started watching Buffy. There was a whole negotiation with my mother about whether or not I should be permitted to watch the show. And really the trick was I got her to watch an episode of it. And so she wanted to watch it. And so then we just watched it together. But there was a real like scam where I like had the channel on for whatever was playing before one night. And it was like supposed to be my bedtime. And it was like, what's this show that just started? Because I knew she would like it. And so then on Tuesdays, I had a later bedtime than I did the rest of the week so that we could watch.
I've
always been a mastermind.
See, I was more of an Angel fan. I love his series.
I mean, some of the best character development happens on Angel. I feel like you can't separate them out. Like, I think Buffy was the flagship, right? But I think Buffy had extreme highs and lows, right? And I think Angel's highs are just as high as Buffy's, right? Like, there are definitely on an episode to episode basis. Like sometimes you'll have a Buffy that's worse than an Angel and vice versa. Like because they both, but Buffy ran for 7 seasons, Angel ran for 5. Like that's 22 episode seasons. That's so much television.
You don't even see that anymore. Like
absolutely.
Now shows are wrapped up in 2 or 3 seasons. But the reason I read Angel
6 to 8 episode seasons too. It's so much less time to tell the story. And I think for both better and worse, right? It's for the most part planned in advance now, right? You'll write out the whole season, get the season greenlit, get the season shot, and then all the episodes drop at once. Whereas like, in the heyday of network television, right? Like the season was like outlined, but things would change as you went along. Like the audience was really responding well to a character. Like maybe we extend their contract and what else can we do with them in the back half of this season, and there's something, I think there's something lost with that too. There's something, and we're definitely in the era of prestige television. So obviously something gained as well. But I think there's also really special things that can happen in television when you have a 22 episode season and you know what your end game is, but you have like 5 episodes in between now and then that you need to like do something with, you'll get bad filler episodes, but sometimes you also get like weird, unexpected, never would have happened otherwise episodes that are kind of these like little standalone masterpieces that are very self-contained and lovely.
But that's how they got Steve Urkel in Family Matters. He was supposed to be like a one-off character.
Yeah, exactly. That is a great example.
People fucking loved him, and then
because how could you not?
Face of the show.
I didn't realize that was how that happened, but that makes sense.
He was supposed to be a one-off character. But no, talking about Angel, the reason I liked Angel better than just a tad bit better than I did Buffy was because it was darker. It was darker and more serious. I feel like Buffy was a little fun. Yeah, it had a horror aspect to it. It had darkness to it, but it was fun and it was a little lighter.
I hear you, and I don't agree with you. And I'm not even going to go so far as to say that I think they're just more different shows than they get credit for being. But I think that is something I feel like gets said about it, but I don't know if it's true because Angel had this silly land that they go, right? Like, because remember the same season that Buffy dies the second time. Mm-hmm. The same season Buffy dies the second time. Angel season ends with them, right? They've gone to the land. They're trying, what is it called? It's Lauren's homeland, and like they're going after Cordelia because Cordelia's been sucked into it. And she's been made like royalty. Yeah. Yeah. Right? And they all come back and it's so silly and they're singing, and then like Willow's there to tell him Buffy's dead. Right. And so like again, like the highs and lows, the comedy, the drama, like they both run the gamut. And it's kind of just like how were they situated against each other? And I think because Buffy started in high school and Angel was always, I mean, not just like an adult show, right? He's just old. I think that this notion that Buffy was like lighter or for kids was kind of or for younger people was kind of the sort of narrative around the show as far as who it was marketed to. Because Angel was also kind of marketed a little bit like a crime procedural.
It was. It was supposed to be more like a crime mystery.
Yeah, he's literally a detective, you know?
Yeah. Who's like a fucking vampire.
Yeah. Great. We're hitting all of the high notes of my childhood right now. I could not be happier with this interview.
Now, were you a fan of the Buffy movie? Did you ever see?
I did see the Buffy movie. I had already been watching the show for a time and was like, I need to rent this movie, parents. And it is very dissimilar and was not to my liking. I have not revisited it.
So for the first time, I knew that the movie existed because Pee Wee Herman, and I was a huge Pee Wee Herman fan growing up. I'm sure my age, but I was a Pee Wee Herman fan, and I still love all his movies. I thought he was hilarious, and I knew this was after the whole jerk-off scandal.
Which, his career. I might be speaking out of turn, but I actually feel like that was really mischaracterized, and he was like weirdly maligned for something that wasn't actually as sketchy it was as it was presented as being.
No, but I don't. He was in a porn movie theater.
Yes, right. Okay, I wasn't sure, and I don't want to be like spreading misinformation, but I feel like I feel like we were all made to believe that he was like a sexual predator when it actually seems like it was just some sort of prudish and maybe homophobic, like. Yeah,
I don't even think it was a gay. I don't even think it was a gay. Like I think it was just like a regular porn theater.
About this though.
Yeah, but no, I agree. At that time, it made it seem like he was a pedophile or something. I don't know why. Like in everybody's mind, it was like he did something against the law.
Because he made like content for children. And then, like, God forbid you have a sex life. I don't know where I stand on, right, if it's still, like, public exposure. I don't know what one expects when
we call him.
What?
But was a paparazzi waiting outside of the porno theater or something like that?
I don't really know. What I know is that it's more complicated than it was made to seem, is my position.
Yes. But that was his first role after that whole scandal because, listen, he got blacklisted for a while. And he played the head vampire, and
there's also
Buffy.
I feel like young Ben Affleck also has like a small role in that.
Does he?
Yeah, I think he's like a basketball player.
Okay.
Yeah, he's there.
I didn't see that movie, so I knew about it, but I didn't see that movie until 7 years ago, and I went to a horror convention that's called Monster Mania in Maryland. There's one in Jersey too. And I think her name is Christy Swanson. She played Buffy. She was at the convention, and they had these, I don't even think they do it anymore at these conventions, but they used to have theater rooms that you can go into in a hotel, and they would be showing whoever the guests were, they'll be showing their movie so you can sit and watch. And I saw Buffy was playing. I was like, got some time to kill. You know, I'm here for the whole fucking weekend. And I watched Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, and I fucking hated the movie.
It's so funny, as you were like leading up to that, I was just about to say, I bet if I rewatched it now, I would watch it with kinder eyes than I did when I was like 8 and comparing it to my favorite show.
It just wasn't good. I mean, I didn't get it. I didn't. And well, maybe it's because I started with the TV show and the movie. Maybe I watched them backwards or something.
It does seem like the sort of thing where most people like one or the other, right? Like I have definitely met people who liked the movie and were not about the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Each their own. I'm glad they both exist.
Yes. And by the way, as you know, you find out now, my interviews just go on a rant about something that's not even on topic.
Great, perfect. I'm so happy for it to be Buffy and the Olsen twins.
Exactly.
And a little aside about Pee Wee Herman.
And Pee Wee Herman, which, listen, I think he got a unfair shake. I mean...
It seems like it.
I mean, like... But I think back then, like, watching porn and jerking off was, like, so... Or masturbating was so taboo. Like, nobody watches porn.
It's
so taboo. I mean, it's not like... I feel like masturbation back then was taboo. I feel like everybody masturbates now. I mean, women have sex toy parties and this and that.
We just all talk about all of our personal stuff in public.
What was that?
I said it's because we're all on social media talking about everything personal about ourselves. There's like no secrets anymore. Our secrets are now content.
I remember I was talking about sex toy parties in the 90s. Like, if women got sex toys, it was something they got secretly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like, it just seems like back then it was just so taboo to talk about sex or anything, which is weird. I mean,
yeah, I want more from the 90s.
I don't know. I mean, I thought the 90s was so progressive or something, but like looking back, I'm like, it wasn't.
I think like none of those things are linear, right? There's probably ways that the 90s were more progressive than now, and then ways that they weren't, right? Like there's, you know, we're always like operating on different axes. Like I think movies were like hornier in the 90s than they are now.
Yes, 100%.
I was just having a conversation about this the other day, right? And I think, you know, some of that has to do with sort of, which is a little odd because you'd think with like streaming, right? Television has more room, but I also think like Disney is such a stakeholder, right? The Disney holds so much real estate in the sort of like film marketplace. But I feel like why I was talking about this is because a Saltburn Cruel Intentions comparison was being made. Cruel Intentions also starring Sarah Michelle Gellar of Buffy.
Yes.
Bring it all back.
We're back in circle, yeah.
But yeah, so again, I feel like none of that stuff is linear, right? And it's easy to sort of think that like one era has X, Y, and Z going for it that got better or worse, but it's kind of all a push and pull as like culture sort of butts up against itself and redefines itself generationally.
Yeah.
With the hope that we progress.
We hope that we progress. But like you were talking about, like in the 80s and 90s, when, yes, everything was super horned up, like especially horror movies. I mean, there wasn't a horror movie that didn't have 2 or 3 sex scenes in it, you know? And then, of course, we got the Scream era. And the Scream era was like in the beginning of the new millennium. And like, and I think we're kind of in that point right now, too, where like sex is not important in horror movies. Like, there's less sex in horror movies now than there were in the 90s or 80s.
That's probably true. I mean, I think somebody has probably written a really brilliant, well-researched analysis of this. I wonder if in I feel like you'll read these things that talk about how the sort of prevailing horror villains or tropes of an era reflect the fears and values of that era, right? Like we're afraid of zombie movies when we're afraid of other people. We're afraid of werewolves when we're afraid of like the primal within man, you know. And I wonder if on a longer timeline there will be a really great thesis about about this exact topic and like what it means in the current moment, but we're probably a little too in it to really see it right now.
I would have fucking loved to read that, by the way, if somebody because I was telling a filmmaker the other day, I was like, if you look at by decades, each decade has its own style of horror film. Like in the 80s, it was all slashers. And then in the 90s, I mean, it kind of went all the way to like mid-90s. And then you got what I call the teen horror movies. That's the ones you see Freddie Prinze Jr. in. You know what I mean? Scream, Summer, Urban Legends. That went on. I mean, Cruel Intentions, The Faculty. That went on for about another 10 years, and then you started getting all these paranormal films, Paranormal Activity, and so many.
I feel like you're jumping over the sort of hostile torture porn era, which a lot of people I think attribute to sort of being a trauma reaction to 9/11. Right, the sort of weakness of the sort of Saw, right? Like all of those franchises are in there too.
I completely get that.
Which again, it's also right because like because even now, right, there's like different horrors catering to different audiences, right? Mm-hmm. Summoners is the most romantic horror film about two women who aren't lesbians that you'll ever find. You know what I mean? Like it's about the rekindling of a friendship, you know. Yeah. But it has ghosts, you know. It has spells that go awry, you know. It has scares, but it's right. But it's for people who also grew up watching The Craft and then watched it with adult eyes and were like, ooh, I still feel really nostalgically about this movie, but I don't love the class politics of it. You know, like, right, these sorts of things that like are very much of their time, but it's not all for everybody all the time. And right. And budget level really, really influences that as well. Right. Like even in the same time period, you're going to get really different types of films from a studio standpoint than you are on an indie standpoint. And part of that is like what you can afford to do. But part of it is also, I think a lot of times independent filmmakers are interested in doing different things than the studios are interested in doing.
But I think they can do different things because I think filmmakers who are working for the studios, they can move for the studios. I think the studios do not allow them to think outside the box.
I mean, I think there are certain types of transgression that we permit. You know, and but yeah, like I think there's also just like more people involved with more at stake, right? And I think the sort of blessing and the curse of working at an independent level is you kind of can do whatever you want, but you have to come up with the money to do it. You know?
Yeah, and the marketing too.
And the marketing.
That part. All right, so
the hardest part.
Yes. All right, so Chris, I got one question to ask you real quick.
Okay.
What was the first horror movie that you saw that scared the shit out of you?
Oh no. Does Twister count? Is Twister a horror enough movie? I was too young when I saw it. My parents were divorced. My father took me to see it in theaters. I was very upset, and my mom was very mad at him.
I've never seen Twister, but I can't say I can't say Twister is a horror movie. I think that's more of a, what's the term I'm looking for? Like I put that up in the same.
It's like a thriller, natural disaster. Yeah, natural disaster. I was traumatized by it. So the real answer to that question is not a movie. It is that book. It's the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book.
Oh, I love those books when I was in elementary school.
Yeah, I had a friend who had it, and I went over to her house after school one day before my mom came home, and we were reading from it. And I was so shaken up about it that this book was actually the reason why Buffy had to be a negotiation, because I was so difficult to parent after that. I was like scared to eat meat. It was bad. And there was like a story where like a woman feeds her husband the liver of a queen from the graveyard next door, and the queen comes to take his like. I was like, I cannot eat this hamburger, Mom. The cow will come back for me. You know, like turned me into a vegetarian at like 4. So I wasn't allowed anything scary after that. And Buffy was negotiated, and by extension, Angel was the exception for like a while. But that book is the real answer. That book like shook my soul.
Those books were so much fun.
I think it did that for a lot of us.
Yeah, those books were so much fun because I had a library. So we had a library class while I was in elementary school, and Miss Cornish, I don't know even if she's still alive or not, but great lady. But she would, every Halloween, she used to cut the lights out and she used to read the stories from that. And like jump at it, and it would scare the crap out of every single time.
Amazing.
Yes, I mean that's one of the memories from elementary school. That Miss Cornish, great teacher.
Right. I love those like formative teachers that you sort of carry forward with you.
Yes. All right, Christine, where can everyone find you?
Where can everyone find me? Oh, I'm so glad. I don't have Instagram right now. I'm working 2 jobs and I'm in school. And so I turned it off because I got stressed out. But normally at Christine Nyland on Instagram. So whenever you're watching this, just check. And if it's on, you can follow me.
Yeah, so listen, whenever she's available, probably next year sometime?
Probably in the summer.
In the summer, okay. So
coming back to Instagram, summer 2024.
So let's start looking in June, okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Look at Instagram in June.
Remember when you were like, you could be good at marketing? And I was like,
yes.
No social media.
By the way, I had to get Instagram and TikTok. So I started the show March of last year. So, and I was like, and people were telling me, like, you got to have Instagram, you got to have TikTok. I already had Facebook. You got to have Instagram, you have TikTok, you got to have Twitter/X or whatever the fuck's called. And like, I was like, this is a fucking pain in the ass because now I have to like only do this fucking
horror room. You have to use them.
Yes, you got to fucking use them because it took me. I just literally started using them like the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? I found out you can link the fucking Instagram to the fucking Facebook, and you make the post on Instagram, and it carries over to your fucking Facebook. Now, if there was a way I can do that with TikTok, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I feel like if Threads successfully replaces X, you'll be able to, those 3 will all be linked up.
Yes, that's why I just want one thing I can
post on us all.
On all of them. I don't have time for this shit. All right, listen, everybody. Go and check out Summoners. It's on Tubi, Amazon, Vudu, Plex.
I think it's pretty much everywhere at this point.
Everywhere. You can look for everywhere. Christine, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, this was fun. And I learned out a lot about you and your, the Olsen twins and Buffy the Vampire.
I hope everyone knows me better after this interview.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they will. Good thing.
Right. Thank you so much.
Everyone. You're welcome. And everyone, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. Make sure to hit that like and that subscribe button. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.